If you're wondering what the Browns are looking for in their next quarterback, new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees may have revealed a key detail and other notes from his introductory press conference coming your way next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Kevin Stefanski surprised everybody by revealing who will be calling the plays in 2025, and yet it wasn't really a surprise at all. New offensive coordinator Tommy Rees also talked about a number of different things, but maybe gave a glimpse into what the Browns are going to be looking for in their next quarterback, plus more from Rees's press conference as he shared his vision for the Browns offense. And it sounded awfully familiar to what others have said the vision should be. I do want to thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Browns podcast and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into it. And we start with the fact that, as I sort of hinted at you guys, and I did put up a short little video sort of recapping what we had heard at Tommy Rees's press conference on Thursday. But it started with a little bit of a bang as Kevin Stefanski came out first just to kind of intro the entire thing and talk about, how they settled on or landed on Tommy Rees being the team's next offensive coordinator. And he gave us something that was a surprise, more so because of the timing of it than it was like the actual announcement itself, because we did kind of expect it. But he got out of the way immediately that he will be taking back the play calling duties that he surrendered to Ken Dorsey mid-season this past year when things were going awry. They were 1-6 in the season, handed him over, tried to sort of provide a spark, change things up a little bit. Didn't go any better, really. And so he will be taking those back. He did note in his exact quote was something along the lines of like, I will be calling the plays, but I reserve the right to change my mind. So he could obviously eventually change his mind and give him over to Tommy. But he is, at least for now, making it known that he's going to be the primary play caller again. And I think this is beneficial to do it now. Like last year, they waited until Kevin Stefanski rather waited until the start of training camp to basically unfurl the news that, hey, I'm going to be the primary play caller still, with Ken sort of in that supporting role. And this year he didn't wait. He announced it day of the introductory press conference. So the reason I think there's a big benefit to this is it allows the Browns to basically have clarity as they try to figure out how to construct this roster, especially when it comes to finding a quarterback, right? Because like last year, they knew what the deal was. They knew it was going to be Deshaun Watson starting the quarterback, for better or for worse. And it was, it was built around him. Ken Dorsey was brought in to sort of bridge the gap between what Kevin Stefanski could provide Deshaun Watson in his offense and what Deshaun Watson really wanted to do, and try to get the most out of his skill set. It obviously didn't work, but you had the clarity of understanding like where you were at that point. So you still could have announced it sooner if that's what you were going to do. But like as they move away from the Deshaun Watson era, the fact that Stefanski is making this known now, it gets something out of the way, removes any doubt or questions about like who it's going to be, who was going to have that responsibility. And it sets the tone that like, yes, we are going back to Kevin Stefanski's offense. I'm going to be in charge of calling those plays, and I'm going to be the one sort of running the show here per usual. And I think that's a good thing. That's a positive thing, because we know what to expect with Kevin Stefanski calling the plays in his own offense. We've seen this offense have the most success when he's been the primary play caller. We've seen it hum to the beat of being a playoff team on, twice in a 4-year span, obviously twice in a 5-year span as well. I kind of blocked last year out of my mind because it was so miserable. But it obviously still falls on Kevin Stefanski's resume, so we can't take that away. But yeah, like we know what to expect, and it allows them now to again enter the offseason as they make some big decisions about the roster with a lot of clarity and just like clear minds on what they're doing, what they're looking to accomplish, who is running the show, and so they can figure out what players kind of fit into that goal, that the overarching things that they want to do on offense. That's from an offensive line standpoint, like what are they going to do to fix some of the holes that they might have, or a hole that's maybe to come if Joe Bitonio does in fact retire. Running back, I've talked about that being an important position of need for the Browns this offseason. How are they going to address that this year? Is Nick Chubb going to come back? I think he probably will, but can you rely on him to be your lead back? Do you need to sort of do like a timeshare between him and somebody else and Jerome Ford? So what those things look like, I think you sort of get some clarity on what direction you want to go and the types of players you want to sign when Kevin Stefanski is going to be the guy calling the plays. It also and this is it's the most important thing in relation to the quarterback position, because we know how important the quarterback position is. Kevin Stefanski to this point has never really been able to choose his own quarterback or have a quarterback that was an ideal fit for him and his offense that he got to bring in. Deshaun Watson was not that. I've questioned the fit between those two from the beginning that this move that move was even made. And so now I don't know that they're going to draft a rookie necessarily and give him his first like rookie quarterback that was of their own choosing. But whatever quarterback they do go out and get, free agency, the draft, otherwise, it's going to likely fit Stefanski's system, and he's going to have a chance to really like identify the player that he thinks is best for that's available to them this offseason, and bring them in as the leader of this team's offense, the conductor of the choir that is the Browns offense, if you will, going into 2025 and for next season. So I think all those things are important. I think it sort of gives you a peek into, where their heads are at even further, which is, again, that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part wasn't that Kevin Stefanski was going to retain the play calling duties. I kind of expected that to happen once you found out Tommy Rees, who's never called plays at the NFL level, was going to be the OC. But this job will enable him to sort of, work alongside one of the better play callers in the business, in my opinion, and Kevin Stefanski, get his feet wet that way and sort of learn, what he's sort of, what that role entails, and be that supporting cast player or that supporting cast coach in Stefanski's efforts as Stefanski, and help make the game plan, by the way, as Stefanski then just takes on the primary responsibility of being the guy on game day that's kind of calling the shots there. So it'll be a good chance for him to kind of learn those things. And maybe at some point he does switch it up if he feels that Tommy Rees really starts to grasp things and he can take that off his plate again. But I do think, like, if you're looking for signs that things are going to be better in 2025, Stefanski taking back the play calling and then building the team in his vision in the vision of what his offense is supposed to look like and be, that is the number one sign that this thing is has some life, and then it won't necessarily be as miserable as it was this past year. Maybe they still end up with a bad record. I don't know, but I think that is a major step in the right direction towards getting the train back on the tracks, because I think Stefanski's great at that role. It's why he was hired here in the first place. And I didn't like that not that he had to, but that he gave up play call in the first place, but that obviously wasn't working last year. Going back to what works in his system, I think is the magic elixir to solving a lot of your problems on offense. Yes, there's holes to fill, but I think a lot of the issues also did start with, the guy under center and the type of offense that you were trying to run last year. I got more from Tommy Rees's introductory press conference, including, if you're wondering what the Browns are looking for in the next quarterback, Tommy Rees maybe gave you a peek behind the curtain into where their heads are at in terms of a key trait that he wants to identify. We'll talk about it coming up next. It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of the final weeks of football action. That's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football, you want a chance to win real money while watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. It's easy with PrizePicks. All you do is pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards, rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, PrizePicks has got you covered. This week, they're offering an almost free pick for the NFC Championship game. Jaden Daniels needs just one. That's one passing yard for you to win one square. It's almost free because I guess you never know. Anything can happen, but it's an easy chance for you to win some money. Here's a special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today. Use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, so as I said, more from Tommy Rees's introductory. Reese's is funny. It sounds like I'm talking about the candy. Introductory press conference, where one of the most notable things he said, as he was peppered with questions about what they're looking for at quarterback, and he kept it close to the vest in terms of how they feel about some of the guys in the upcoming draft, including Jalen Milroe, who we know he worked closely with in 2023 when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. But he talked about a key trait is the best way to put it that he likes in his signal callers. And I think this is important in terms of where the Browns maybe are looking and where they sort of start as they assess these quarterbacks, both in free agency and in the draft. Here's what Tommy Rees had to say.
Yeah, at the end of the day, a quarterback's job is to solve problems. You're going to be tasked 60, 70, 80 times a game to make a decision in a critical moment. And so I've always started with the ability to make quick decisions and make the right decisions. So if you said one thing over the other, I want a decision maker at that point.
I thought that was pretty interesting from Tommy that, he mentions you're going to make 60, 70, 80 decisions in a game. And we want somebody who can make quick decisions and make them, confidently and make the right decisions. Because the quarterback that they've had the last 3 years, that ain't him anymore. Unfortunately, the trade failed. They thought they were getting the Deshaun from 2020 and previously and before, but he's not that guy. His processing isn't there, and there's obvious issues just with his ability to see the field, read the field, make the throws confidently, and that is something that the Browns just haven't seen at that position here. It's probably, there's some of that with Jameis, like he did some of that confidently, but from like a true starting quarterback that they're trying to build around, they haven't seen that here. So I think that's notable. I also think it's notable because of how you start to think about and how you start to frame the quarterbacks in this draft class. We know the Browns are picking second overall. We know the options that are at their disposal. There's Shedeur Sanders, there's Cam Ward, potentially guys who could go, top 2 overall in this draft because of the top quarterbacks in the class, and that's always how these things go. But they could wait, maybe take a Jalen Milroe, maybe take a Will Howard, maybe take a Quinn Ewers. There's other names, Kyle McCord, etc. Like there's guys they might wait on if they decide to trade back, which, like I said on yesterday's show, is kind of the direction I think they're going to go and probably the direction they should go. But yeah, like as you start to think about the quarterback that they're looking for, you start to think through and watch the tape and realize or figure out like who has that trait. It's nice to kind of get a baseline trait or skill that the organization is looking for to be able to sort of frame what direction they could go at that position. And truthfully, like it might mean they don't take any of these guys and they look to a veteran that they feel comfortable can run the offense and do those things, make the quick decisions that Tommy Rees was alluding to there. So we'll see how that sort of shakes out. But like, as I think about the rookie class, I'm trying to think through the guys that I feel comfortable, like will make those decisions and make them confidently. I think Shedeur Sanders is probably the most seasoned when it comes to being like in the pocket, operating, reading the defense. So I do feel, again, as I've said from the start, that he's probably the best fit for the Browns offense and the one who probably does that at the highest level of anybody, if we're talking about guys that make the right decisions and good decisions. I think Cam Ward makes quick decisions. I also think sometimes, in a number of instances, I've seen that on his film. But I also think he makes those decisions. He makes a lot of decisions, though, that are the wrong ones or reckless ones. And that's something that's a little bit dangerous. Like, I think it's interesting. Josh Allen this week talked about how there was a play in divisional weekend against the Ravens where he thought about it, looked like pitching it back to James Cook, their running back, after he was running with the football, and just trying to like get the extra yardage or get the touchdown or something like that on a sort of just like fluky backyard football style play. And he was asked, like, would old Josh Allen do that? And, Josh is an interesting case because I do think you've seen him evolve over his career and have some of that recklessness and risk-taking coached out of him. And he kind of laughed because he was like, I think old Josh Allen would have done that. New Josh Allen, or old Josh Allen, he just takes the yards and, takes what he can get. And so I just thought that was super interesting that you see a quarterback that had some of these when he came into the NFL, some of the questions with him was like, well, he's going to take the shots and he's going to throw it up there sometimes because he's got that cannon of an arm. And we can all think back to the playoff game where he threw it up into to fullback and double coverage in the playoffs, his first playoff appearance. Like that type of stuff, just he's coached that. And the turnovers were a major problem for him. This year, he's had the best year of his career in terms of limiting the turnovers. Like, for a guy to coach that out of himself is impressive. Can you do that with a guy like Cam Ward? I think is the big question the Browns would have to answer. In terms of other guys making quick decisions, Quinn Ewers seems like that's still something that he's working on in developing. I think Will Howard showed some promise in that regard especially in the college football playoff. But again, you have elite athletes around him, so I have questions there. And Jalen Milroe, I think, is still sort of developing in that way. The thing that makes Jalen Milroe interesting, obviously, is his athleticism, his ability to create outside of structure. But, is that enough for the Browns to want to take him at some point? We'll see. I've said before, part of the reason why I think I'm comfortable trading back is at some point there's more value in a Jalen Milroe in like the third round than there is, a Shador or a Cam Ward at 2 if you're not really sold on either of those guys being the franchise guy. Because if you miss, it's more of a detriment to your organization than if you miss on Jalen Milroe in the third. So I don't know, but as I start sort of thinking about and framing these quarterbacks and figuring out which one I think is the best fit, I'm going to be using that comment from Tommy Rees as a guiding light. Not that he's making the ultimate decision on the quarterback, but it's going to be some input that gets brought up in the room. And, that's important to note. These guys are going to try to be on the same page. They talk about always being in lockstep and trying to make decisions together. Being thought partners is always a go-to quote for them. So I would imagine Tommy's got some weight in that room. He's got they're going to value his opinion, and we'll see if that truly is something that they're looking for in their next signal caller. But a nice sort of guiding light or some, of what the team might be looking for this offseason in their next quarterback. More from Tommy Rees's introductory press conference, because he provided an interesting quote as well on what he wants to see from this offense moving forward. I will play that or show you, or I'll talk about that coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. It's been a glorious week because the Ohio State Buckeyes are national champions, and I get to say that I saw the Buckeyes in person this year. My wife and I actually went to the Michigan game this year, and while we were obviously disappointed in the loss for obvious reasons, we will never forget that we got a chance to see the national champions in person, and it was all thanks to Gametime. I will tell you, my ticket buying experience went so smoothly ahead of the game that Gametime is now my go-to app for buying tickets. Plus, they have new features like Gametime Picks, which make it so much easier to get tickets to your favorite events by allowing you to filter out the fluff, essentially showing you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Game time? Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. And let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in with the strongest hiring data available. LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it's a game changer. LinkedIn connects you with the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else, from unique skills and interests to the connections you share. LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality candidates for their jobs. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. So as we reflect a little bit more on Tommy Rees and his introductory press conference from Thursday, I did think there was another sort of interesting line and an interesting comment from Tommy Rees just in terms of what they are looking for or what they're looking to do with this offense, and what they're trying to accomplish as a unit in a group, given where the offense was a year ago and given where it's kind of headed with going back to the Kevin Stefanski system this year in 2025. And so I didn't cut this quote out, but I'll sort of read it here for you, because he was asked just like, how do you envision things looking on offense? And he said, like, I think we're going to work together, him and Stefanski. We want to have a system that is sound. We want to have a system that is explosive. But at the end of the day, we want a system that caters and really highlights our players' strengths. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard something similar from the Browns in relation to what they need to do on offense and what they should be trying to do on offense? Oh, I know. I heard that on Locker Cleanout Day from Jack Conklin and Joel Bitonio and others throughout the day who basically highlighted the fact that, like, they built the offense around one guy. They built the offense around Deshaun Watson. They didn't use his name specifically, but they built the offense around one guy. And being this pass-heavy offense that slings it around the field 40, 50, 60 times a game and doesn't really run the football isn't what made this offense successful before. It wasn't what made it successful in 2024 either. It did not work. And so I found that interesting, because I do think that is what the best coaches do. I can give you a quick anecdote here. So when I used to be on the Buffalo Bills beat previously, we were on a conference call. They used to do conference calls back then with the opposing coaches, and the Bills were playing the Bills are playing the Broncos back then. And the Broncos coach at the time, why is his name escaping me? But the Broncos coach at the time, he was talking about how he had come in. He was talking about how when he came in, it was Vance Joseph. I knew it was something Vance. I was trying to, what the heck's wrong with me? I was thinking JD Vance. That's a completely different world. No, Vance Joseph was the head coach at the time. And he had talked about how when he came in, the Broncos ran like a 3-4 defense, but he runs more of a 4-3 defense. And so he said, like, I didn't want to come in and reinvent the wheel here. Like, the 3-4 works for this team. We're talking like the vaunted Von Miller Broncos defense days. And if that's what works, like, I'm going to lean into their strengths. I'm not trying to fit like square pegs into round holes here. And I thought that was interesting, because I do think the best coaches are adaptable. Like, they fit their system to what their players do best, and not the other way around. They don't just try to force something onto somebody that isn't going to necessarily work for them. And I think, like, that's kind of what Tommy Rees is alluding to here. Like, what our players do well, we need to try to do that. And it just so happens that I think a lot of what the players do well is what works best in Kevin Stefanski's system, which is part of the reason why they had sort of built the team that way in the first place once he got here. But now, it is important to get back to that, because this offensive line, they were built for the outside zone, play action heavy offense that thrived under Joe Flacco and under Jameis Winston at times this past year and others, and not so much the off structure, let the quarterback run around and try to make plays and throw the ball 60 plus times. Like that's just not what they do. And so to hear guys on the last day of locker room cleanout day say that, I thought was fascinating because it pointed to, the players kind of understanding what needs to change. And so I thought it was a breath of fresh air to then hear that sort of echoed, if you will, by Tommy Rees, that yes, we want to put our players in the best position to be successful. And to do that, it's what they do well. It's what their strengths are on this team. And again, we've seen what this team does well. It's Kevin Stefanski's offense, and it worked before. Going back to it makes a ton of sense. But I think that's huge. Again, as we think about what they're going to do to fix and supplement this roster, the areas they need to address, and the direction this thing's going to go, that is another kind of guiding light for the way they construct this thing this offseason in the months ahead leading into 2025, because you now can say we know that with the guys we got, we want to accomplish these things. We want guys that fit that and play to all their strengths, not just the strengths of one guy, the quarterback. And I get that, in a lot of instances, you do build around your quarterback, but those are teams that have quarterbacks. Browns don't have a quarterback right now. And so you do need to sort of think about what's going to make the most sense to make the team successful, especially this year, where to me, the expectation is get the train back on the tracks, get this thing going in the right direction, get back to the playoffs. And then from there, we can talk about future quarterbacks, rookies that maybe come in and be your franchise guy, and then how you build around them moving forward. But yeah, just another sign that they are, turning back to what made them successful in 2022 and in 2023, in 2020 as well when they made the playoffs, and that they've closed the book on the Deshaun Watson era officially. And I think it's for the best for everybody. Now it's going to be about how they use that to help figure out the parts and pieces to the puzzle that they need to build this team for next season. And we'll see what that looks like again in the weeks and months coming up down the pike here. Another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thanks for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team here during the off season. Certainly plenty more conversations to come, and I look forward to having them with you and making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please go to one of the new Locked On NFL shows, or if you want to keep it local, you can check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland, but enjoy the weekend. Peace.